Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. We had a fantastic weekend here in Tampa Bay. It was incredibly hot, record breaking temperatures yesterday. It was over 100 degrees. Summer is at its peak, right? Aaron took Cohen to the water park. I stayed home in the air conditioning with Winnie. And I just was reflecting yesterday on what a great summer we have had. I've had just so much quality time with the kids. I've had a lot of great quality time with my wife, Erin. Just really, really awesome summer all around. And it's kind of bittersweet that it's over in 2 weeks. So Cohen starts kindergarten August 13th, which is nuts. Both that he's in kindergarten, second that they go to school August 13th. That seems way too early to me. But I started thinking about our budgeting for his kindergarten expenses. He's going to go to private school. And today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about just our family's education funding plan, what we did for Cohen and why, and then why we pivoted, and why, as we start to think about Winnie, what we're doing a little bit differently. So after our first child, Cohen, was born in 2020, I didn't start thinking about education really until we started looking at daycares. So he was probably a year and a half, almost 2 years. We started looking at the cost of daycare. I'll admit I was kind of floored by how much daycare cost, right? But then I started thinking, if I'm shocked by this, I can only imagine if I don't get ahead of college, what that will shock me down the road. So at the time, my thought was really 4 ways to do it, right? So I can either do nothing, just keep maximum flexibility, pay for it on my own. I can fund a custodial account where it's a separate bucket in his name. The benefit of that is it takes some of the tax burden off of my plate, puts it on his plate at a much lower bracket. I can do a 529 and grow tax-free for qualified expenses, or I can do the Florida Prepaid. And what I did was the Florida Prepaid. And the reason I did the Florida Prepaid at the time was twofold. So I grew up in New Jersey. I knew I wanted to go to a Florida school. Florida State was my dream school. And the experience I had at Florida State was just absolutely incredible. It was more than just the classroom, right? So it was my first real taste of independence. It was going to the grocery store and picking out what I wanted to eat. It was going to bed when I wanted to go to bed. It was meeting people from all walks of life and learning about them and how to interact with them. The friendships I made then, I'm still very close with a lot of them today, and it's really cool to see our kids growing up together. So I want that for Cohen, and at the time, in my mind, very narrow-minded, so I've expanded since then, he was going to Florida State, right? So he's going to be a Seminole, no question about it. So Florida Prepaid in my mind was I'm covering FSU tuition all at once, and I don't have to think about education again. So we did a lump sum funding of Florida Prepaid in 2021, and just said, hey, we're done with education. And that thought lasted maybe a year. And as I thought about it, I think, one, as a dad, I realized it's not where I want him to go, right? It's about his future and his path, and I want to give him the tools and resources to do that. So there's two things that really came to mind at that. One, I didn't really think through tax efficiency through K through 12, right? So Florida Prepaid doesn't cover K through 12. Pinellas public schools are not excellent. High probability he goes to private school. So I started funding a 529 because it grows tax-free for qualified expenses and can be used K through 12. So advantage of opening up the 529 for K through 12 is if I'm just funding it out of my own bank account or brokerage account, I'm still on the hook for the taxes owed on interest, dividends, and capital gains. Whereas if I put it in a 529, all of those earnings are tax-free. So it's lowering my tax bill even if it just sits in cash and earns interest. So immediately started funding the 529 to get ahead of private school costs before college. But we're also still funding above and beyond that because we recognize that he may decide to go out of state, and then he might also not get into the public school in Florida of his choice. So not only are costs rising dramatically, Costs have gone up 140% for public schools since I've been in school, 180% for private schools. But the competitiveness of Florida schools has just gotten crazy as well. So Florida State had its lowest acceptance rate in history for this freshman class. They had the most applications ever. Florida, same thing. I read a story about the class number 2 from St. Pete High School. I believe it was the number 2 that didn't get into UF or FSU, which is nuts to think about. I mean, I was an okay student in high school, but nothing spectacular, and I got in. But I started thinking about, hey, he may need to go to private school. He may need to go out of state. So let's, in case there's a pivot, let's make sure that we plan accordingly for that. So we started doing the 529. So the 529 can be used for qualified expenses K through 12, but also qualified education expenses. So then for Winnie, we're not doing the prepaid, and it's a little bit twofold. So one, we want to keep maximum flexibility for where she goes to school. And I recognize a lot of people say, well, you'd have more flexibility if you just kept control of the assets or had a custodial account. But even if they don't go to college, I still believe that they should go to some type of higher education, whether that's a trade school or an apprentice school, if we need to put it towards, private high school. But we have options that we most likely will use even if they don't go to college. 2, it allows us to open up their horizons outside of state. It allows us to open up to private schools as well. So the 529 is key. And because we're not doing Winnie's in a lump sum, I'm doing it on regular contributions. I believe that equities will grow more than the 529 will. So even though I could dollar cost average into the prepaid, I'm dollar cost averaging into the S&P 500 into her 529 to give us K through 12 funding, but also give her more of a shot for a broader education. So again, no right or wrong, but our family's done both. Going forward, we will only do the 529. But prepaid's a great option for simplicity as well. So if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to connect with you. If you find this information helpful, please subscribe, and I hope everyone has a wonderful week.